All right, here we are with Defeating Adventism, part 2 of hymnals. There might be a part 3, but definitely got the part 2. So, but the first video, it showed that Adventism utterly failed to correct all previous censored Trinitarian hymns. There are hymns in this book, the current Adventist hymnal dated 1985, which still have censored Trinitarian hymns. I believe Adventism, they want to give the appearance that the Trinity has been restored in everything that they've censored previously in this book. Yeah, they give that appearance, but we know it didn't happen. So there is an appearance to me in Adventism, and I have seen this now over many years, that there's a real sensitivity to Trinitarianism. That they just want to they go so out of their way to try to prove to everybody we're so Trinitarian. But as you know, we can expect Adventism, well, they fall flat on their face. There they are falling on the face in their hymnal book. Adventism is so desperate to be accepted as a Protestant Trinitarian religion. And what Adventism does is they just overemphasize the Trinity so much it's just over the line and very apparent they are trying to emphasize this a lot. You ever been in a crowd of people, with a group of people, and there's one person in the group who is not accepted in the group for probably obvious reasons, but that person wants to be accepted so bad. They try so hard. And as they're trying so hard, because they're trying so hard, everything they say and do is just awkward, weird, strange, doesn't fit. It's obvious they're trying hard. They don't fit. They're not ever going to fit. That's Adventism. Adventism is just awkward, weird, trying so hard to fit into Protestant Christianity, which it never will because Adventism is not Christian. But they try hard to do this, and they fail. Well, that's Adventism. Now, in this 1985 hymn book, we are going to see hymns by staunch anti-Trinitarians. So not only did they not correct their hymns, but they put hymns in this book by anti-Trinitarians. Why you would do that is just beyond me. Even though the hymn itself may be fine. Okay, that's not the issue on the table here. The issue on the table here is if you're going to give credit and credibility to a hymn writer, and that hymn writer is a well-known, great heretic, anti-Trinitarian, why would you put him in your hymn book? Especially if you're a religion trying to be Trinitarian. You wouldn't. But I guess you would if you're an Adventist, because it means you have no discernment. You don't know anything. All right, so it's just a big fail, this 1985 hymn book. But let's look here. September 12th, 1986, Advent Review magazine. And let's look at some of these heretical anti-Trinitarians. Similarly, several key figures in early Adventism, including James White and Uriah Smith, rejected the Orthodox Trinity doctrine, viewing Christ as a created being. Several decades passed before Adventists accepted an Orthodox Christianity. The point being made in that article is this: James White, Uriah Smith, anti-Trinitarians. And Adventism was not Trinitarian until decades later. And also, it was the decades later were after both these guys died. So James White and Uriah Smith both died anti-Trinitarian non-Christians. That's no way around it, Seventh-day Adventists. Your founders, your pioneers died non-Christians. So the Jesus of James White and the pioneers was also known by another name, and that name is Arian. And now I used this magazine in the first hymn video, so let's just look at it again here. Advent Review, April 1984. And it says this: will the New Adventist Hymnal, that's the 1985 hymnal, remove traces of early Adventist Arian theology? So there we go. Arian theology is the theology of Arius, and Arius was a 3rd century heretic who believed that Jesus was a created being and the Trinity was a false doctrine. Well, that is the Jesus of Joseph Bates, James White, J.N. Andrews, Uriah Smith, etc. To believe in that Jesus, to believe in that Arian Jesus, is to be none other than a great heretic, a great anti-Trinitarian heretic. Okay, you like those words or you don't like those words, Adventist? So let me just say, those aren't my words. Those are your words, Adventist. Look with me here. Advent Review, October 14th, 2010. In this article here, they're talking about Arminianism. And then they say this in the sentence in the middle that starts with actually. as they're defining what an Armenian is and isn't. Actually, many have initially confused these terms with either the ethnic Armenians of Turkey and their brand of Orthodox Christianity, or, note these words, the great anti-Trinitarian heretic Arius and his Arian teachings. There it is. To believe in Arian Jesus is to be a great anti-Trinitarian heretic. Like James White, like Joseph Bates, like Uriah Smith, like J.N. Andrews, and on and on and on. There you go. Your literature, not mine. But this now really begs the question, doesn't it, Adventists? Why are non-Christian, anti-Trinitarian heretics allowed to put their hymns in your book? Do you allow other heretical, non-Christian, anti-Trinitarian heretics to put hymns in your book? Like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, or you can think of others? Do you do that too? Because, well, their words must be okay, right? No, you put these people in your book. You give them credence and credit when none is due. So not only does this 1985 hymn book not correct previous Trinitarian hymns, it now includes hymns by, well, great anti-Trinitarian heretics such as James White and Uriah Smith. A true religion, of course Adventism is not a true religion, a true religion which is Trinitarian would not do such a thing, would not put anti-Trinitarian heretics and their hymns in their book. The LDS Church has sung some beautiful hymns, but you will not find LDS hymns in a Christian church because they know that they're not Christian and we're not going to give them the credence and authority and place them in our hymn book. Christianity knows that, but Adventism doesn't know that. Well, let's look here at a couple hymns. And so we have the first hymn here first two hymns by James White. There they are. So let's just be reminded of this great Arian anti-Trinitarian heretic, what he said in 1852 about the old Trinitarian absurdity. There he is. Now we got Uriah Smith and his hymn in the 1985 hymn book. So let's be reminded what he said about Christ. Christ is not the beginner, but the beginning of creation. He's the first created being. There it is, right there. Anti-Trinitarian heretics given credence and authority to put in a book which this religion says is Trinitarian. They refute themselves. Now, the sister of Uriah Smith was a prolific poem and hymn writer. It's my opinion she too had the same view of the Godhead as her brother Uriah Smith and James White, because of the company she kept. Let's just look here. She was brought into Seventh-day Adventism by Joseph Bates, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner in 1851. Joseph Bates was a Christian Connection adherent, which means he believed in the Arian Jesus of James White. So she was brought in by an Arian heretic. She also worked, when James and Ellen would travel, then Annie Smith worked part-time as an editor for the Review and Herald and just filled in. Well, that was James White. There's the other Christian Connection anti-Trinitarian heretic. And then what else did Annie Smith do in the lower right-hand corner? You see here a hymn that she wrote. And she did this to describe the rich and varied experiences of J.N. Andrews, another Christian Connection, great anti-Trinitarian. She was marinated and surrounded by Arian heretics. There is no reason to believe that she believed anything any different based on the company she kept. Here are the two hymns included in the 1985 hymn book from her. But this next and last one deserves a special attention because she's the author of the hymn, but the hymn music is attributed to and cited by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Why you would put Jean-Jacques Rousseau in your hymn book is something else that's beyond me. Well, let's look at it here. There it is, Annie Smith citing on the music arranged by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Who is Jean-Jacques Rousseau? He was a Catholic convert. You can see here he lived in the early to late 1700s. And Catholicism, he converted to that in his early life. Keep reading down. Rousseau's assertion in The Social Contract that the true followers of Christ would not make good citizens. And then it goes on to say he also repudiated the doctrine of original sin. Rousseau repudiated a lot of Christianity. Rousseau was not a Christian. He was a philosopher. And then it says Rousseau's deism differed from the usual kind of emotionality. Now, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a deist, and there are lots of flavors and stripes and types of deists, but I can say this about deists: if you're a deist, you're not a Christian. You've got problems with the scripture, you got problems with miracles, you got problems with Christ, you got lots of problems with the scripture. You're not Christian. So let me give you a standard definition of deism here from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. It's a religion emphasizing morality, 1700s, denies the interference of the Creator with the laws of the universe. God created the universe and then went, okay, I'm done, hands off. That's deism. Keep reading. Belief in God is based on reason rather than revelation. A person can, through their reason, know God, not through the revelation of God. It's a denial of the scripture. Then lastly it says this: deists assert that reason could find evidence of God in nature and that God had created the world and then left it to operate under natural laws devised by God. So to be a deist is to say God created everything and said, I'm done, you all figure it out, you'll find me through your reason. That's not Christianity. And because that's not Christianity, that man's name does not deserve to be placed in a Christian book. Well, he's in this book, and well, I already know this is not a Christian book. See, the discernment of Adventists and Adventism just lets us know they are not Christian. Jean-Jacques Rousseau does not belong in a Christian book. It belongs in an Adventist book, though, because it's not Christian. So, this insertion here by Annie Smith, sister of Uriah Smith, of this Catholic who converted to deism, who denies all the essentials of the faith, and then they put it here in this book, is just another problem in the Adventist hymn book. So, summary, the previous video proved that this current edition of the hymn book did not fix all censored Trinitarian hymns, because there are still censored Trinitarian hymns here. This video does show that Adventist Arian anti-Trinitarian heretics, as quoted from your magazine in 2010, such as James White and Uriah Smith, are allowed to showcase several hymns in your book. So this is a hymn book featuring anti-Trinitarian heretics. Ta-da! Great Adventism. Annie Smith, who's likely just as anti-Trinitarian and heretical as James White and Uriah Smith, is included her hymn in here with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who got all kinds of problems. None of it, he's an anti-Christian. So this 1985 hymn book is just full of Arian, heretical, anti-Christian beliefs, and well, now we know why Adventism is not Christian.